I'd stand behind it, and they'd push the button, and it'd go, I was like, ah! And so then I had to stand there in those ski boots, and they started out with it where it was going to end up. And so I stood.
Yeah, it had a stopping point.
Yeah, but you say that to somebody, like, don't worry, it'll stop right before it gets you. Just don't lean your hips forward. But in the whole scene, I'm talking to Dean, I'm like, so they're like, okay, so we're gonna load it, and so they put it down to the thing, and I was like, okay, I'm not going. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not moving. But then there's the whole part where they ask Jensen a question, and he breaks into Japanese, and I realized that scene's going, I'm kind of like looking at him, and then looking at the girls, and I was like, oh crap, I moved. I don't remember where like the spot is. So that was very awkward and mortifying. I was like sweating real sweat.
I wish the cameras were on when they showed us. Like they called us a set, and so we walk up and we're like, okay, they're like, hey, we want to just show you what this is gonna look like. And so we hit the button, and it was like, wham! And Bill, Jared, and I were like, nope, no. I think Jared just walked away. He's like, nope, not gonna happen. Like, no, it's like, you know, it's got steel plates of reinforcement, and I'm like, yeah, what happens if it just bends a little? And Jared's like, what happens if it just bends a little?
What if you were shot in the face?
What if you shot in the face?
Speaking of, another, Herpexia was also funny. And Yellow Fever, the snake.
You were scared.
Yes, I took off.
It was on me.
But it goes so, it's like, I literally left. They had to like change the camera angle. I was
The
like,
size of the snake's head was bigger than my fist. And I turned around. Here's the problem. The snake wrangler who was laying down behind the couch.
his name was 180 pounds or something like that.
It was a 180-pound python.
Wow.
And he was supposed to just gingerly feed it over the couch. Just guide it right over the couch and you know, over my shoulder. I started hearing this like grunting going on. The snake is not cooperating with its handler. And I kind of look over the couch, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but he's doing this. He's like trying to throw this, he's kicking it, he's like punching it, and I'm like, don't send that my way! I got 180 pounds of pissed off snake coming over
The way the scene was written was Sam was supposed to be like laughing at his brother's discomfort, but I was like, this is terrifying, I'm out of here. So I just walked off.
I have this like log coming over my shoulder. And Jared just gets up, he's like, nope. Nah, you can't, not doing it. Meanwhile, it's like, okay, well, I can't move. Because I'm frozen in terror right now.
It was the first time I've ever just flat out refused to do something that's on script. And I didn't think I was
You didn't even have to do anything.
I know. But I didn't think I was going to refuse it, but I was like, nope, I'm gone. And so I walked out, and I ended up in Video Village where the director sits, and Phil looked at me and he's like, hey, you're supposed to be in there. And I was like, And I think he saw it in my face. He didn't question or push me. I think he just saw it in my face and was like, okay, I guess go tie it around Jensen. So that we couldn't see that Sam was no longer sitting on the couch.
And what you didn't see, they actually cut away, but you know, we see the snake come over my chest and kind of down, and it actually went right between my legs. And I'm not moving at this point. I'm just like, just let it do what it's gonna do. Just let it run its course, because I'm not moving. And it did. It went right and just right down, and the whole 9 feet of it. What's happening by there?
Was that for you then, the awkward things to film?
Yeah, I didn't like that. or the bees. hey guys, we just need to make sure you're not allergic to bees. And if you get stung,
How do you do that?
Hey, you get stung, you're not going to go into anaphylactic shock. What? How do you do that? You like to, smear something on you? Like, actually, we're just going to take this bee and sting you with it. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, it's only a 3/4 sting. And I'm not kidding. So they put this little piece of mesh on your skin, and then they hold a live bee with tweezers, and then they just stick the stinger, and it goes just through the mesh enough to get like half its stinger in you, and then they pull it out. It doesn't come off the bee, so the bee's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not, because now I just got stung by a bee, and I've got this welt now happening on my arm. And they're like, okay, it's been 30 minutes, you're fine. I'm like, yeah, except for this, goiter on my arm right now.
It's also funny because they've asked us to do some wacky stuff on Supernatural. Jump out of this window. Don't worry, I know you can't see, but there's going to be a pad you're going to land on 12 feet down. You're like, cool. I'm like, spin this car into a 360, and then you're fighting this guy. Ram your head through that wall. We're like, cool. They're like, we're going to sting you with the bee. We're like, no.
But then to make things worse, it's like, okay, guys, time to go into set. And we walk in, all of the crew have bee outfits on. Guess what? Sam and Dean don't get to wear bee outfits. They're in regular clothing. And then the bee wrangler.
On the day of shooting.
I'm like, how many we talking here? Like a couple hundred? He's like, there's actually 60,000. I'm like,
but don't worry, they're drone bees.
Going into anaphylactic shock.
They're drone bees. They're not going to sting you unless you piss them
drone
off.
bees, as long as you stay calm, they're calm. And I'm like, okay, stay calm. Wait a minute. When they yell action, I have a blowtorch.
Yeah. And we're supposed to be swatting the air.
That? And he goes, oh.
And then we're like, well, what about, so you're going to release 60,000 bees, but then we're going to have to go back to the beginning of the scene where there were no bees for like take 2 and take 3 in different camera angles. He's like, yeah, we're going to vacuum them up. I was like, doesn't that piss him off? He's like, only if we do it a bunch of times. A bunch like, 20 or 30. He's like, yeah, if we do it like 3 or 4 times, they're going to be a little angry. We're like, we're going to do it like 12, 15 times.
Needless to say, we got stung. I remember just before Kim, our director, just before he yelled action, they were like, okay, roll sound, and I mean, they're all over the place. Roll sound, okay, and then the camera system comes up and it's like, okay, 34 Baker, take 2. They set up a marker, they run off, and I'm like kind of crouched down, and I'm like kind of flicking bees, they're on me, they're just landing on me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, find a happy place. And they're like, okay, ready, and just before he yelled action, boom! One had gone right up my shirt and got me right on the upper part of my seat.
Took us.
And it was like, ready, and I was like, wait! And I reached back there and actually pulled the stinger out. I was like, okay! And then the worst part about it, the bees didn't read on film, so they ended up making it with CGI anyway. Good old days.
Thank you for asking.
I never get tired of telling that story. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Pam, and my question for you, aside from the bee episode, is there any particular episode you found really physically demanding that was really hard on you?
Yes. Skin. It was a full day plus of a fight scene. Season 11, episode 10 is pretty difficult. Or is it episode 9? 10.
Season finale 3, when Dean went to hell, and the whole hellhounds,
And then hanging in hell.
the hanging. I was actually 13 feet suspended by wires and hooks and stuff, and that was incredibly painful. The hooks weren't real, but but then the dying to the hellhounds. I always know it's going to be a really crappy day when my wardrobe has plumbing in it. So there was literally tubes going up my shirt that and a tube down my pant leg and over to a special effects guy who had a giant syringe that big, and it was just a big plunger, and it was just full of blood. And so as soon as the hellhounds go down my chest, he just starts going and up the leg, and I had to wear that shirt for like 7 hours. And it's just, by the end of it, it was like caked to me because of the blood, just corn syrup. But yeah, that was pretty physically demanding. Dean was in a lot of fights. And I'm not as young as I was when I was season 1.
He's not.
And shut up. And fighting with 3 people in the back seat of a car is just physically a challenging thing.
What was awesome.
Thank you, yeah. But you know what? I love the physicality of the show. I think he does too. And we wouldn't have it.
At the end of the day, it's a great feeling.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks.
much.
There's an episode coming up where we just filmed.
Season 11, episode 9.
Oh yeah, there was a big fight scene with 4 people, and it got sweaty. It got sweaty.
4 people who you already know.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Probably top 5 new favorite music cue.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
They wrote it in the script what the song is that they're gonna use for the fight scene. I can't wait.
Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
My question is, if you could only say one word for the rest of your life, what would it be?
One word?
Yeah.
What'd you say, boss? Awesome? He would say love.
I would say fight. Because if I want to tell anybody anything, I want to tell them to fight. In a good way. I don't mean like fist fight.
Gentlemen,
What would you say?
I would say supercalifragilistic.
You'd win every argument.
Yeah, no, and if anybody had a problem with it, I'd slap them.
I would say
Because he told me to fight.
To the tune of
fragilistic exalidocious.
Is it that time?
You know what time it is, guys? Stephen Norton. You know what time it is?
It's the last question.
Very last question.
It's the last question.
Ain't no more questions.
It's the last question.
Very last one.
It's the last question.
Very last one.
It's the last question.
Yeah, man.
It's the last question. It's the last question. It's the last question. It's the last question.
Ladies and gents, the Supernatural family, this is Angelina. Say hi, Angelina.
Pretty cool, huh?
This is your family.
What's your question?
Why pudding?
That is the last question.
That is a question.
That's a question. I don't write them. Why pudding? And not pie. She said, why pudding and not pie? It was just easier to say mustard. It was something that I think would throw them off. Pie, the person might be like, oh, he wants pie, he's sane. But pudding, you gotta be kooky.
So true. So very true.
I love pudding.
That says a lot about you, sir. Norton, that was the last question.
Thank you.
Very last one. That was all she wrote. It didn't make sense. About putting it by. Who the hell knows? Ladies and gentlemen.
Maybe say one. Maybe say, before we do this, one last thing. Can we all have the biggest round of applause for the people who make this happen and make it possible, the volunteers? Without which none of this would happen. Mr. Spade.
Absolutely.
Mr. Spade is here to say a farewell and a big thank you to Mr. Jensen Ackles and Mr. Jared Padalecki.